Hello everyone and welcome to episode 1 of this photo critique video series. I'm so happy that so many of you decided to join this idea that I have. I will go very quick through the photos because there are a lot of photos to talk about, so I pinpoint the good, the bad and suggestions that I have. And also, if you want to join this, if you want your photos to be critiqued, if you like this type of video, then in the description of this video there's a link to a group on Facebook. You click that link, you join the group on Facebook, and there at the current pinned post, so it's a post that it's pinned at the top of the group, there as comment you post your photo with gear settings. Now every pinned post has an episode number and it also says when it's going to be published on YouTube. So every critique is going to be here in YouTube, but you post your photos as comments to the pinned post on the group on Facebook that it's linked in the description of this video. So let's go to the computer and start the photo critique.
So let's start quickly with this first photo. I apologize in advance if I will mispronounce some of your names, but it is what it is. So this photo is from Reha Mazlum and it's shot on a Canon 1100 at f11 Tamron 17-50 f2.8 no VR. He had a circular polarizer and it's a photo of a couple of glacial lakes. Okay, first of all, the good point is that I like how it's edited. It's not overdone, and this is a good thing. You can go even further with the editing, but for this photo works. The minus of this photo is the composition, because if this is a photo about this valley and this glacial lake, then there are some elements, for example this over here, that doesn't belong in this photo. So your shot would be something like this, and it will give you a really interesting and beautiful perspective to have these clouds on the valley, but you need to have it more tightly and eliminate elements like this that there are not interesting to the shot. So pay more close attention to what your subject is and what you want to capture. This one is from Milan Vujanik. I shot the picture in a local village around Banja Luka on Nikon D7200 Okina 11. Okay. Now the first thing, this type of pictures are interesting, where you have a lot of negative space and then you have a subject. Now this is your intention is good, but the way you created the image, I don't think it's the best or the best way that you could do it. First of all, you need to realize if you have negative space and then you have a subject that it's darker, you can't split the photo in two, and usually the negative space has to dominate because this creates lots of contrast and it will attract the eye. So you need a lot of negative space to counterweight this subject over here. So this should have been smaller and you should have had more negative space. This should have been about 1/4 to 1/3 of the entire photo. And then you should pay close attention to the way you edit and not having that really completely dark shadows over here. Another one from Paul Robson. This is Tryfon, North Wales on Fujifilm X-T2 13mm ISO 200 f11 13th of a second. Now you have a really beautiful landscape over here, and the entire feeling of the photo, it's good. It's warmer, and this is nice as color tones. The thing is that you don't always have to include a foreground element if that foreground element it's not that visible. For example, in this case, this foreground would have looked interesting if these rocks would have been more clear, more visible. But in this case, I think your shot should have been something like this, in a panoramic format, something like this, because this area over here doesn't add to the photo. Also, there is a reflection over here, and you need to decide, maybe it would have been a better location to shoot this photo from here with this reflection, because in this case, in the way you shot this photo at this moment, this reflection causes the eye to go over here. In terms of editing, you should be careful, because you have a little bit of darkening on the top of this peak, and this is your main subject, and this should be better presented through editing. And right now, as I told you, the eye stands over here and also goes over here. That is why my suggestion was to move to the right and capture maybe the reflection, and then you have this area of the sky which is lighter and that has this beautiful light closer to the peak, and I think it would have looked better. Okay, Presumin Ed. Hi Tom, sunrise from Blythpier, UK. I drove 3 hours. Okay. Canon 1300, 10mm leaf filter, 10 stop, 6 hard grad, 270 seconds on a tripod. Okay, it's nice, but always think of what you are trying to do. So what you're trying to use as a composition line is the way this bridge is curving, and you also have the sunrise over here. So this photo should be about the curvature of the bridge and the sunrise. This area over here doesn't belong here because it only attracts the eye, and I think you should have included more of the bridge. You should have concentrated on having on standing more in the middle of the bridge and having the bridge in full image and the sunrise to the right. This one is from Adi Ababe, Canon 750, Canon 50mm, manual focus, f5, ISO 200, 15 seconds. Okay, the main interest of a photo should be the subject that you're picking, and this subject should be very clear. Its presence should be very clear in the photo, and the composition has to sustain the subject. While in this photo there is no real subject, because these trees that are covered in snow maybe are interesting to look at, but they are not making an interesting enough subject to be worth photographing. Fabrice Droulet, I don't know exactly, but if you are French, Fabrice Droulet, shot in Transylvania near Sibiu. Okay, my country, Canon 5D Mark III, f16, 10 seconds. When you do long exposures on water, make sure you don't lose the details in the surface of the water. For example, in this area over here, and these areas are losing details, so you need to be extra careful with that. You have a composition that places the eye attention over here. Now the main problem is that this is all the way to this side, and if you're doing this, then you split the photo in half. This should have been much closer to the center, and you should have a little bit of space here, just like this one over here, that this is a barrier that blocks the eye and holds the eye here. You also need a barrier over here to block the eye over here and have the viewer's attention to this side. Also, be careful with turning the water blue, because it's not always an interesting look, mainly because it's not natural. So you should be very careful with this. Okay, this is not visible. Okay, it's visible. Charlene Nagel, or Nagel, I don't know exactly. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity, Tom. You're welcome. This photo was taken last fall at Niagara Falls. The Niagara River separates Canada and the US. Canada is on the left and the US is on the right. The falls includes the American Falls. Okay, so we have Canada on the left and US on the right. Vertical panorama stitch with Lightroom. Now this is great because of this small story, because I know right now at what I'm looking. But if this is the photo about this waterfall in the right, then maybe the title it's not that good. This photo it's more about this water and the bridge, and okay, it's okay in the way it was framed, although the waterfall over here attracts the eye. In terms of editing, I think there is a little bit too much contrast and too much darkening in the buildings over here. So whenever you have a situation like this where you have two places where the eye could go, you need to choose one. You either go with the bridge or you go with the waterfall from a different perspective, but you need to be extra careful when you have many points of interest, of more than one points of interest, because the eye will not know exactly at what to look at. If this is a touristic image, then it's okay. Again, be very careful with the editing in the top part. There are some halos over here, this darkening over here, and a small halo over here, and this darkening should not be present in the photo. Okay, Andrew Criswell, my neighbor recently trimmed this mango orchard. This photo was taken at sunrise with fog. That is typical location. My home Son province, remote area in northwest of Thailand. Okay, so the image has a lot of noise and it reminds you of old photos. As a composition, I think you should, in a situation like this, you should pick a more clear subject. If you are in the forest, pick an interesting tree or pick an interesting trail and stick with that. Having a bunch of trees in the photo with no real order, it makes it difficult for the the brain to understand. Okay, I took this photo on a vacation. What caught my attention was how the sun at the time was directly behind the leaf. Well, this is a perfect example of something that looks beautiful when you look at, and it's not worth photographing. You need to pick your subjects more closely. You need to be more to pay more attention to that and to realize what's interesting, what's not interesting. But if in this case you liked how the light was going through the leaf, maybe this should have been your frame, where you have just the leaf with these lines over here and the light coming through. Philip North, Swiss Alps, last autumn. As soon as I saw this lone tree, I knew I had a spectacular subject. Well, if you want to make the tree the subject, then you should give it more space over here, and then your frame should be something like this, where you have the rock finishing and you also get the negative space over here. As you created the photo, there are 2 points of interest, the tree over here and then the peak over here. So again, you need to decide. You can't have both elements in one photo. You can, but you need to, let's say, move further to the right, go a little bit lower, and have the tree more shot maybe with the telelens to compress the fields and have the tree much more closer to this peak over here. So again, it's a decision factor. But in terms of editing, it's okay. I like that the biggest contrast and colors and detail and saturation is here, and here the photo it's a little bit desaturated. But again, if this photo is about the tree, then I think this should have been the framing. Christian Barrett, Haitoma, picture captured in Iceland. This is a photo of Iceland that you not normally see. Usually you see other types of photos. As I wanted a good sharpness, I decided to use a small aperture, f16. Okay. Now this is again, it's the same thing as the last photo in terms of composition. There are 2 points of interest. This, it's not a foreground element, because this over here, it's not related to this. This is not some smaller element of this in order to lead the eye from here to here. You have 2 separate elements that are not, at least for me, directly connected. So this is a subject, this is a subject, and again you should pick one, and in this case I think you should have picked the lighthouse. Now in terms of editing, be very careful. You have this halo over here, and you need to take care in the future not to have that. Steve Olgi, thanks Tom for the photo critique opportunity. You're most welcome. This image was taken on a rainy day. I want to show how the tree has been able to withstand the elements. 30mm f10, 13 seconds of exposure, 10-stop filter. This image it's an image that I really like, and the only improvement that I can suggest is to experiment more and to maybe have an even longer exposure time, about 100 or maybe more of seconds, just to get rid of these small details in the water. But just as it is, it looks great, it's perfect. It's how this type of images are done. You can also experiment with different negative space, and to have maybe a lot more negative space in the photo, but as it is, it's really great. Jan Volker Rorvik, early morning. I think I shot at f14, 1/8 of a second. Okay, this it's a classic image of a winter forest on the shore of the lake. My only suggestion would be to not have that much water in this area over here. Think of it like this: you have you frame a little bit of the water, and you have a dimension over here. Here it's a bigger one, and here the negative space, it's even a much more bigger one. So this is the way I think you should have shot something like this, a framing like this. Or you can go with a really long exposure and concentrate on this area over here, and you have the trees covered in morning frost, and then you have the reflection in the water. The editing is okay, it's soft, it's perfect for this type of a landscape. Gary Lohr, I don't think I can pronounce this. A photo taken at Ohiopilpa, it's strange. For me it's a waterfall. Now the story, it's about the waterfall, and again, you make sure you don't have burned highlights like you do over here. Be very careful with the saturation. Be very careful with the blue water. It's not that natural to have this type of blue water and then green water over here and then orange water over here. You should at least have consistency, but I don't recommend having the water that blue. Now, in terms of composition, there are elements over here that should not be over here. So you have this, and then you have this, and then you have this tree that goes like this. So your main interest is the waterfall, and then you have a composition support from this tree over here. Unfortunately, in this side there is no compositional support. It's only this tree over here that creates contrast and then attracts the eye in a bad way. So what I recommend in the future is create a stronger diagonal. So move to the left, this moves to the right, and then the waterfall moves to the left, and then you have a stronger composition where you also have a triangle. You have this, and this element. Hope I make hope you understood exactly what I wanted to say. Okay, Alex, this photo was taken last fall in Bavaria. Sony Alpha 6000, f13, 1 second, ISO 100. When you have exposures like this of 1 second, make sure that it's not windy, and you have everything still, unless you want to capture the wind. Okay, I like how it's edited. It's a little bit soft. The shadows are a little bit boosted and raise the black points a little bit. The contrast in the sky, it's okay. It's a photo about the entire valley. The only area I don't like is this one over here. And I don't know exactly if going on an area, on a place like this, for example on the point that's behind this pine tree over here, should have made the photo look better, because the most interesting area of this photo are those two houses, and also the elements that create the bigger contrast. So this is the obvious subject, and this is just a way to show where this subject is placed. But I think in the future you should pay more closer attention to the place from where you are shooting. Other than that, I think you're on a good track over here. Okay, Myro Shave, hi, I ordered. Okay, ND filter and run out. Okay, this result I catched with 30mm f13 at 30 seconds with ISO 100. I made the red a bit more poppy with my Lightroom. Okay, I like the flat water. Okay, so the entire feel of the image, it's nice. The only problem is the lack of a good subject. In this case, we have these silhouettes and these reflections. These all look good, but it's like a frame. It's like a beautiful frame without a true subject. This is my only complaint over here. So what I'm seeing, it's good, but it lacks something to make it better. Also, in terms of editing, I don't know if this is the Facebook fault or your fault. Check the Lightroom and see if the contrast and saturation you've added didn't create this problem over here. And also, when you're editing, remove the dust spots that you have on the sensor. Other than that, the photo, it's really pleasant to look at. But again, it's a pleasant photo without a true real subject. So in the future, just look at just try to find more interesting subjects. Frank Waters, Foggy Forest. So my only complaint with this photo is, in terms of composition, is that the composition is too forced to your right. You should have more space to your right in order to have this S curve sitting better if you want. Now you have a lot of dirt over here that I realize it's part of the trail, but it's not looking like this. It's not something that it's that visible. Maybe a better shot would have been from a point like this, from here, and you should have captured only this area of the forest. In terms of editing, I think you forgot to remove chromatic aberrations from what I see on the edges over here. I may be wrong, but this is how it looks. Also make sure or take care of how you boost up the contrast and saturation in foggy landscapes, because it adds a lot of noise. Okay, Diego Ferreira Menendez. This is a really pleasant image to look at. The only problem I have with this image is when I look at, my eye tends to go over here to this small rock, and the reason for this, it's because it's dark in really bright background, and whenever you have dark on light, you will have contrast. So this should not have been in your photo. And other than that, it's interesting. Maybe if you don't have an interesting foreground element, I don't know if this would have been an interesting foreground element, but if you don't have an interesting foreground element, you could have gone something like this, a more tighter composition. Testing a new lens. We have a double rainbow over here. Okay, pay close attention to how you frame your shots, because you don't realize it, but when you look at something, your brain gives a command to ignore some of the elements, but I can't ignore elements that are here in your photo, for example. So my suggestion would have been to, if you want to capture only the rainbow, to go over here and capture the sea and the two rainbows. But if you also want the lighthouse, you should have created a more interesting connection between those two. Maybe move to the right and have the rainbows descending and having them ended as on top of the lighthouse. So pay more attention. Sorry for that. Pay close attention to where you stand and what other elements are included in your photo. Jarod Tobek or Jarod Tobek. Okay. Love looking for the intimate and simple images of landscapes. This is great. This is something that when you have this type of hills, works great. Again, my suggestion would have been to first of all remove the sky and concentrate only on this area over here, and then this point should have been about here, because the way it goes like this area of the photo becomes a little bit useless, because all the contrast is over here, all the points. So this line should have reached something like this. So the composition should have been like something like this. But it's your intention and the way you have thought of this image, it's a good one. Okay, this is about the negative space. The question is about the negative space. If the negative space, I'm curious if you think there is too much negative space on the left of the image. So, first of all, this rock is truly impressive how it stands over here. I don't know what is this black thing over here, this stain. I don't know if it's natural or it's from editing. If you want to have negative space, this is not enough negative space, because you have this big area over here and that occupies almost half of the image, and then you only have half of the image over here with negative space. This should have been one quarter or 1/3 of the image max. This is my suggestion. Or you can go in landscape mode and frame only this over here. I don't know if you can have other options in terms of positioning yourself. Maybe go to the right, maybe go lower. I don't know exactly. I don't know how this place is in Nova Scotia in Canada. The place looks phenomenal. But right now there are two areas of the photos, and in order for this to be a counterweight for this area should have been a lot bigger. I think about 30 to 40% bigger than what it is right now. But the black and white editing, it's okay. Let's see. Ophir Fuss. So this image, it's a valley. Okay, it's a road that goes into a valley. In terms of editing, because this is the first thing that comes to see to my eyes, it's a personal preference, but I don't like having this kind of darkness over here that it's almost taking away all the detail. So what I suggest is to have a more balanced look between these two areas, the area over here and the area over here, and this looks better. You should not, if you want to have images with higher contrast, it's not easy to do. It's a lot of editing work, because right now it just looks darker. It doesn't have enough contrast and enough details over here. In terms of composition, this area of the photo doesn't do anything to sustain the photo, so you should have been on the middle of the road or on the other side of the road to have this going something like this. Yeah, and use the zigzag to kind of fill the entire frame. Mary Converse, here's a more traditional landscape photo I was wondering about. It's 20 minutes. Okay, before sunrise. Okay, so I think there is too much in the shot right now. You have to decide. If you like this, then you should have stayed lower and capture only this and have only the sky in the background. But the way you are framing this, it's a story more about what is behind it, and because of this there is too much in the frame right now. Flavio Adrian Centia, a photo, I think it's from Chahua Mountain, but I may be wrong. I would not worry about the quality, and because this is Facebook. Now the low clouds over here act as negative space, and again, as stated in other photos, in this situation there is not enough negative space over here. Maybe, I don't know if you could have had more negative space in the upper part, but it's not that important. Over here should have been something like this. This should have been 1/3 of the photo, and this negative space a lot more. Other than that, it's really good. I don't have anything bad to say, just to have more negative space to act as a counterweight for this element. So this photo of a bridge and the town, the photo as it is composed right now, it's not about the bridge, it's about this town over here, because this is the biggest and lightest area in the photo, and this attracts the eye. And because of that, these reflections don't belong here. This area over here that is just messy doesn't belong here, and maybe all these don't belong here. So your shot should have been something like this. Okay, if you want to take this photo and make this photo about the bridge, you have to position yourself in a way that there is not another element that will dominate your shot. I don't know if you can go to your right. I don't know exactly the location in order to give you a better advice of how to capture this. I would have to know the location to know exactly what I'm talking about. But as it is right now, for me at least, it's a photo more about the town than it is about the bridge. And this should have been the composition, and the bridge should act like a frame inside a frame. Okay, Dwi Siagawanto, sorry if I mispronounced it. A really nice image, and has a nice feel to it. The only thing that I think I would have done differently is remove a little bit of yellow and orange from this green and make this green a little more greener if you want. But other than that, it's a pleasant image to look at. Okay, I've opened it twice, seems. Yeah, one of my favorite locations from Massimo Santoro. This is Alps di Siusi. During my photo tour in the Dolomite, we are not going up here. This is called Compach, but we are going behind this rock formation in Passo Sela, and also to the left in Passo Gardena. It's during sunrise from it also says it's sunrise. Behind here is Pisboe, another peak, and you need to wait to have the sun going above Pisboe to have light. I think this location looks better during sunset, but we're not discussing here this. It's a pleasant, really pleasant image to look at. It's really nice. It's a really beautiful location. Now, as suggestions, and improvements, and first of all, I really like how you have these light catches on the snow. It's absolutely beautiful. Suggestions: use a graduated filter to kind of dim down the light in this area over here, because your photo, it's about this rock formation over here and Massima Lata, and it's right now the eye escapes in the upper part of the image. So this area should have been a little bit brighter, and this area over here should have been a little bit darker, and then you should have had a little bit more details in the pine trees. Don't add that much contrast over here in the pine trees, because with winter images it's nice to have a little bit of softest in details. Thomas Dovidaitis. Okay. A really nice place where to photograph, but you should decide what you need to photograph. Maybe you want the reflections, maybe you want the house, maybe you want the entire complex, but right now this has a big portion of the photo, and this is not that big, so this doesn't act as a true subject. My suggestion would have been to go on a photo on a composition, something starting from let's say here, and capture the reflection also, and be in panoramic mode up to about here, and then you would have had this pointy arrow shape made of the trees and reflection pointing to this small house. This over here, it's beautiful to look at, but it's not useful to your composition. So camera should have been a little bit lower, or looking a little bit lower, to have the entire reflection and have the image something like this, or something like this. You can experiment with different sizes over here to see exactly. I don't realize exactly, but this is my advice to you. Okay, another one from Frank Waters. Redwood forest in Northern Carolina. I used focus stacking of 5 exposures to get the fallen redwood in the foreground and the trees in the middle ground. Shot at 50 millimeters, ISO 400, f16. Okay, my advice would have been not to include this in your photo, because this is a really big element with nothing interesting on it. My advice should have been to concentrate, for example, only on these three trees, and have a shot something like this. Make your forest photos about only one single element, and they will look better. Okay, and the last photo this is from Vasrul Saltiani. He also used the circular polarizer. The overall feeling of the image is great, but it lacks a subject or a point of interest. If you would have had a big rock over here or something, or I don't know what else, but it's like a beautiful, really beautiful frame that has no real subject in it. And this is my advice for the future for you. Find something of interest in images like this.
So that's it for episode 1, and I really hope that you like this conversation that we're having and you found this conversation useful. Next Saturday is going to be another photo critique. It's episode 2. So again, if you want to submit your photos, check the description of this video. There's a link, a Facebook group. You post your photos as comments in the pinned post. Hope that you will subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're not already subscribed. If you are subscribed, thanks for watching, for commenting, for supporting me and sharing my work. And until next time, keep on photographing is the only way that you can get better. Bye bye.